Donald Trump has more than doubled his support among the black community. According to a new New York Times Siena College poll, Trump is now over 21% support from black voters in 6 battleground states, which is more than double the 8% he received nationally back in 2020. This boom in support is taking place in the all-important key swing states like Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Newsweek recently reported on this phenomena. Here's what they wrote. They said, former President Donald Trump, the GOP presidential nominee, has doubled his support among black voters, a recent Morning Consult poll found. A Morning Consult survey of 11,501 registered voters conducted between August 15th and August 18th found that Trump has garnered significantly more backing from black voters compared to his 2020 run. The 2024 poll shows 21% of black voters supporting Trump, a 12 percentage point increase from a 2020 Morning Consult poll. The poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 1%. Trump's increase in support among black voters contrasts with the poll's finding for Democrat candidates. In 2020, then-candidate Joe Biden received 81% support, according to the poll. The Pew Research Center found that black voters overwhelmingly supported Biden in the 2020 election, with 92% backing his candidacy. In August 2024, the poll found newly named Democratic nominee Vice President Kamala Harris with 72% support from among black voters. While Harris still polls significantly better than Donald Trump among black voters, she lacks the percentage growth seen by the GOP candidate in this survey. Specifically, the poll found that Trump's support among black moderates and black conservatives has increased significantly, doubling among moderates. In 2020, 8% of black moderates supported Trump, whereas in 2024, that figure has risen to 19%. Among black conservatives, 44% now back Trump, up from 24% in 2020. The poll also found that the percentage of respondents with no opinion decreased by 5%. On the other hand, 51% of black conservatives support Harris, which is down from the 65% who backed Biden in 2020. Among black moderates, 74% support Harris' campaign compared to 81% who supported Biden. Newsweek reached out to Harris and Trump's campaigns for comment via email. So the question then is, what is the potential impact here? Well, even a small shift in black voter support could dramatically alter the outcome of a national election. For decades now, the Democrat Party has taken the black vote for granted. Every 4 years, they promise that they'll help lift up that community. And every 4 years after the election, they just pack up and leave the community in the same state that they founded. For 60 years, the same promises have been made over and over and over again and never delivered upon. Because of this, dissatisfaction with the Democrat Party is at an all-time high. So then this brings us to Donald Trump. He, on the other hand, has taken direct action to not only appeal to the black community, but to follow through. Despite the mainstream media's constant screaming of Hitler, 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 and racist at Trump, his actions have apparently connected with many. So what did Trump do for the black community? Well, there was the criminal justice reform. Trump signed the First Step Act back in 2018, which aimed to reduce recidivism and reform sentencing laws. This legislation shortened mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug offenses and provided more opportunities for early release. Then there was funding that he provided for the historically black colleges and universities, otherwise known as the HBCUs. Trump signed legislation that permanently funded HBCUs and simplified the FAFSA application process. His administration also provided over $500 million in loans to HBCUs through the Capital Financing Program. Then there was the economic opportunity zones. Trump's tax cut legislation included opportunity zone incentives to promote investment in economically distressed communities. And because of this, the black unemployment rate pre-pandemic reached a record low of 5.9% in 2018 under Trump's administration. And finally, when it comes to promises, Trump introduced his Platinum Plan. Trump in 2020 unveiled his plan to propose to designate the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations, making lynching a national crime and recognizing Juneteenth as a federal holiday. And so, outside of the mainstream media's trumpeting support for the candidate of choice, Kamala Harris, momentum appears to be shifting away from Harris and more towards Donald Trump now. And much to the chagrin of many within the Democrat Party, the Democrat National Convention didn't seem to provide any quantifiable bump for Kamala Harris. And now we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has suspended his campaign and is backing Donald Trump. Take a look at this.
We had a very good talk, and then he invited me to come see him the next day, and I went to Minneapolis and saw him. We met again a couple of weeks later in Florida, and we talked not about the things that separate us, because we don't agree on everything, but on the values and the issues that bind us together. And one of the issues that he talked about was having safe food and ending the chronic disease epidemic. Our children are now the unhealthiest, sickest children in the world. Don't you want healthy children? And don't you want the chemicals out of our food? And don't you want the regulatory agencies to be free from corporate corruption? And that's what President Trump told me that he wanted. He also told me that he wanted to end the grip of the neocons on U.S. foreign policy. He said he didn't want any more $200 billion wars in Ukraine, that we could use that money back here in the United States. And he told me that he wanted to end the censorship, because the whole basis of American democracy is the free flow of information. And we know that a government that can silence its opponents has license for any kind of atrocity. And can you think of any time that you can look back in history and say that the people who were censoring were the good guys? They're always the bad guys, because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism.
The bottom line here with RFK supporting and promoting the Trump campaign is that this will likely lead to the consolidation of anti-establishment support behind Trump. Kennedy's endorsement will help consolidate support from voters who are skeptical of traditional political establishments. Both figures have appealed to those distrustful of the mainstream institutions. And Kennedy, withdrawing from ballots in about 10 battleground states, will likely provide a small but potentially huge boost to Trump in closely contested areas. This will likely lead to a shift in the narrative. Trump's campaign can promote now the idea of a unity party. You see, despite whatever the media might say about Kennedy, he comes from perhaps the most prominent Democrat family in modern American history. The stage is now set to snap up support from those who may not trust Trump, but feel the weight of corruption coming from the government and want it to stop. As Kennedy made clear, he has areas that he does not agree with Trump, but there are many that he does, including foreign policy, government censorship, and addressing chronic diseases, which could bring these topics to the forefront of the campaign discussions, which will all be good things for Donald Trump. Now, the Harris campaign is scrambling to minimize the damage and have openly expressed openness to welcoming Kennedy supporters who opposed Trump. However, their actions say otherwise. Kennedy made it clear to his supporters in his suspension of campaign speech that although he first reached out to Harris, she not only refused to meet with him, but also refused to so much as speak to him. That will not go over well with those who have allied and support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So here we are. The Harris campaign's Democrat National Convention failed to grow her support, and instead the news immediately shifted back to Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with his ever-growing support from former political opponents and minority communities willing to give Trump a second glance. All in all, it seems like there is going to be a tough road ahead for the Harris campaign. And of course, we'll have to wait and see how everything goes. From the To Be Frank Show, I am Adrian. Thanks for watching, my friends. I'll see you all in the next video.